Friday morning. First alert weather days for impacts from Tropical Storm Francine. We're on your side with what we're tracking and the threat and what you can expect.
And we talk about how you can prepare for those impacts and some key items you should have in your safety kit.
Live on your side. First Alert Weather Extra starts right now.
And we got some footage right now out of Lafayette, Louisiana. You can see many people outside of gas stations preparing for the arrival of Francine, which is expected to strike that state. Looks like as a Category 2 hurricane now happening late on Wednesday. And it's just amazing how quickly things can evolve in the tropics. And glad to have you back here with us, Tania. This time last week, we were watching that part of the Gulf of Mexico. It seems like the models have just really been locked in on something happening there.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been giving people heads up since last week. We said, hey, this week, Wednesday, Thursday, we really got to watch the tropics. And hey, it developed so fast.
Yeah.
Before you know it, it was Tropical Storm Francine.
It's kind of interesting here. We're looking at some data, and the last one we had was Ernesto, and it's been the longest dry spell, I guess you could say, with tropical systems
Super
like
quiet.
this. Last time this has happened like this, 1968. So it got quiet. Now here we have this system. Let's go right to it. Next big thing we're tracking. Current view 79 degrees from Gulf shores. We have winds out of the east northeast. It looks like a yellow flag there at the moment, but the water conditions, as you can imagine, we're going to see rough surf here over the next couple of days as that tropical system approaches the Gulf Coast. We went ahead and declared first alert weather days for our area because it's just going to be an impactful system. Mostly a lot of rain. Could see a localized flood threat over in the western part of the state. Some breezy conditions Wednesday night and into Thursday morning. So certainly plan for a lot of rain, which is actually what we need. I mean, that's the good thing about this. We're finally going to get some of that much needed rainfall. But if the track does change, we need to watch that. If it goes a little bit further east, that could impact some of those forecast wind speeds that we're talking about. And also, as with any landfalling tropical system, a threat for isolated tornadoes. Now, as this moves into Louisiana, notice now we're seeing the possibility of a Category 2 hurricane as it makes landfall. Once it moves over Louisiana, it will weaken as it tracks. The center of the cone of uncertainty takes us around Natchez, Vicksburg, Mississippi. But note the heaviest of the rain is going to be right there along the center of where this tracks, and also to the east of the center. You get all that moisture that lifts in from the south, so that's what's going to feed a lot of that rain that we're going to deal with here across Alabama. But again, the center now, the way it looks, the center's tracking off to the west, but it wouldn't surprise me if this does slide a bit further east over the next couple days. We see that a lot with these systems that move from this general direction, but overall, the main hurricane-related impacts, this will not be like an opal moving through here. I just want to stress where we're seeing the strongest of the winds, that's going to stay well south and west of us. But once this moves through, you'll certainly know it. And you see the wind speed forecast here as we go through Wednesday, start to pick up that southeast wind. Here's the afternoon. You can see some gusts there over 20 miles per hour. And typically with a fast moving system like this and these fast changes with the pressure dropping, that's going to drive up those wind speeds a little bit. So it is going to become quite breezy as the system moves through. Notice Wednesday night through Thursday morning, you can see some gusts there over 30 miles per hour, especially back in here across West Alabama. Could be a few random power outages, so certainly want to make sure you have that phone, mobile device charged up there late Wednesday night. Also, double check your weather radio. Make sure you have some fresh batteries in that in case we do get a rogue warning or two. This is some of the model guidance, which is, you look at this as showing 40 mile per hour winds, but when you actually look at the true wind speeds down closer to the surface, maybe not quite this gusty, but nevertheless breezy conditions as this moves on through during the day on Thursday. And then into Friday, you can see as that low lifts to the north, it may slow down and the leftover circulation may bring us some leftover rainfall as we go into the weekend. But you can see right now rainfall estimates, some higher totals, 2 to 3 inches. That's the Weather Prediction Center forecast map, which will likely be adjusted. I went generally 2 to 3 inches of rain, localized flood risk, isolated tornado threat, and of course those gusty winds that we're going to be monitoring. But as of right now, again, the main impact as we track this system, it is approaching the Louisiana Gulf Coast. We're expecting it to make a landfall later on Wednesday. But be sure to scan the QR code on your screen, and that way you can subscribe to our WBRC YouTube channel so you can be notified anytime we go live for active weather. And myself, along with meteorologist Tania Michelle, will be going live this Wednesday at 2 o'clock to talk about Francine and what we can expect here in our area. I'm I'm sure we'll be fine-tuning that forecast. But what are some of those impacts that are going to impact our friends there along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, but also along the coast of Alabama as we check in now with you, Tania? We're seeing those hurricane warnings now in effect for those states.
Yeah, listen, the coast is going to see those main impacts from this system, and that's what we're watching very closely because listen, Wes, when we see that happen, well, that's what's going to eventually bring us more heavy rainfall. But first, let's take a live look here at I-10 in Baton Rouge, which is fairly quiet for now, but will be a different story as Francine prepares to make landfall as early as Wednesday. So back to the Gulf Coast impacts here. You'll be able to see that there are lots of watches and warnings all across the area, stretching from Texas's coast to, of course, Louisiana and extending into Mississippi's coast. For us, no watches and warnings along the Alabama coast just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if that changes in the days ahead. We're seeing hurricane warnings along Louisiana's coast near New Iberia, and then, of course, hurricane watches in effect for just areas south of Baton Rouge and tropical storm watches in effect for the Louisiana coast as well as Mississippi. So we're keeping our eye closely on this in the days ahead. We'll, of course, give you updates on any watches or warnings issued for our coast. But notice, not only is the coast under warnings, they can also see the possibility for a few tornadoes. We need to watch this too because we're not completely eliminated from this possibility. So we could see an isolated tornado even along our area as well. Of course, we'll keep you up to date all throughout this week. But notice storm surge is also a big concern for Louisiana's coast. Just south of New Iberia and Franklin in Louisiana, that's going to bring them the possibility for extreme coastal flooding. Now, how much rainfall are we talking about over the next several days? Closer to 5 inches down at the coast near Louisiana, 4 inches for Mississippi's coast, 3 inches for ours. But of course, isolated spots can see more than that. And then here at home, we're going to see closer to 3 inches of rainfall for some of our southern counties and areas west of I-65. So quickly, let's go through those Gulf Coast tropical headlines. Here's a look at those main impacts. It reaches Louisiana's coast by Wednesday. Life-threatening storm surge is going to be one of the main impacts along with hurricane force winds, coastal flooding, and isolated tornadoes. But as we continue to talk about the impacts of Francine being heaviest on the eastern part of the storm, meteorologist Matt Daniel joins us now with an in-depth explanation on what the different sides of a hurricane mean.
As you know, we got a first alert weather day going into Thursday, and what a reason is because we're going to be on what we call the dirty side of this storm. So let's talk about what we mean by that. Of course, we like to dissect the hurricanes or tropical systems in quadrants. And so we always say if you're on the northeast side of the storm, northeast side of the eye or the center of the storm, that is where you see the greatest impact. So based off the scale, you got very low to high chance to see those threats. On the top right-hand quadrant of the storm, winds, tornadoes, storm surge, flooding is at its greatest. So obviously along those coastal regions, the flooding and storm surge is an issue. But when it moves farther inland, wind and tornado concerns definitely. And we will be on the eastern side of the storm. So that is a concern for us going into the second half of the week as the storm approaches us. As we go into the right rear quadrant of the storm, still seeing those impacts. Can see a pretty moderate threat for winds and maybe tornado surge as well along the coastal regions of the area. But then if you go on the left-hand side of the storm, that's where you see less impacts. Remember, it flows counterclockwise, so you're going to start getting winds from the land instead of off of the ocean. So obviously you're going to get that storm surge coming in, but on the left-hand side is that dry side of the storm. So wind can still be a concern. The tornado threat's still pretty low, and you're not going to see much in the way of storm surge or flooding. And when you're on the left rear part of the quadrant of the storm, those risks are very low. So since we are on the eastern side of the storm as it makes landfall Wednesday evening into Thursday, that is the wet side of the storm, and that will give us a good chance for rain. And if you're on the left side, you're not going to see as much in the way of rain. It's a little bit drier as well. So I know it's a lot of information, but that is why we have that first alert weather day for those impacts for rain. It's going to cause some issues on the roads. And of course, the track of the storm, the intensity of the storm can still change, and that of course could cause some changes in our forecast. So we'll make sure we keep you updated over the next several days.
Thanks, Matt. We certainly will keep you updated, but I also just want to remind you of some ways that you can be prepared and not scared for any impacts that we see throughout this week. Number one, have that NOAA weather radio on hand. You also want to have that First Alert weather app on hand, along with charging those mobile devices and keeping them charged, especially as we reach those First Alert weather days Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And please take time to secure those outdoor loose objects, especially with the threat of stronger winds later into this week. But you can also scan the QR code on your screen to download the First Alert Weather app on your mobile device. We'll be keeping you all updated on Francine's latest developments and, as always, forecast updates for your specific area.
All right, in 30 seconds, we take a quick look at your upcoming forecast as well as take you around the globe to weather events that are happening, including some of the wildfire events over the weekend. We'll be right back. All right, take a look at that evening forecast. We're staying dry. I know we're talking a lot about the tropical system Francine, but tonight, if you have plans about to head out, no problems out there for this evening. It's going to be another nice overnight. We'll have a clearing sky. Temperature-wise, we'll see those lows in the morning back into the low 60s out there. It's been so dry. Those temperatures have been going a lot cooler during the morning hours. Our weather watchers have been reporting lots of 50s out there, but not quite as chilly in the morning, but again, some 60s out there. We'll see a nice start to the day, but let's keep a watch on Wednesday again as we track that tropical system. We'll talk a lot more about our rain chances and what you can expect coming up in First Alert Weather.
Well, around the world now, Wes, where at least 3 people are dead and nearly 100 are injured after Super Typhoon Yagi devastated parts of China last Friday. Vietnamese meteorological authorities saying it is one of the most powerful typhoons in the region over the past decade. More than 1.2 million people were affected across 3 Chinese provinces. Video right here showing streets with damaged buildings and uprooted trees. Affected areas face communication and power outages. Recovery efforts are underway. Typhoon Yagi also causing the Phong Chai Bridge to collapse in Vietnam. There was also extensive damage to other structures and buildings. Fire crews in Southern California are scrambling to contain a massive wildfire burning just east of Los Angeles. Fox News' correspondent William Lajunas has more from Running Springs, California.
Tens of thousands of homes in Southern California threatened by an out-of-control wildfire burning along the edge of the San Bernardino National Forest, 70 miles east of Los Angeles. The so-called line fire burned through more than 20,000 acres so far, prompting evacuation orders for more than 4,000 residents. But with little warning before the fire crept up, it is not clear where everyone will go.
They're having trouble finding a specific location big enough fairgrounds. It's ongoing, it's dynamic.
This is just one of more than 70 fires burning over 2 million acres in the western U.S., and triple-digit temperatures throughout the region are making containment difficult. On Sunday, the heat from the line fire was so intense it spawned its own weather system, and so far it is less than 10% contained.
It is creeping up along the ridge you see behind me, and we're having a lot of aggressive firefighting tactics from aircraft and on the ground.
Governor Gavin Newsom did declare a state of emergency and says a FEMA grant will ensure the state has enough money to keep fighting the fires. But with the extreme heat continuing into this week, some residents fear losing their homes.
We worked so hard to get this house, and just the thought of just coming back to nothing, it's, all in rooms,
An air quality alert does remain in effect because of the smoke and excessive heat. In Running Springs, California, William Lajeunesse, Fox News.
Still ahead, we bring you your forecast for the week, as well as take you beyond the atmosphere to the landing of the Boeing Starliner. We'll be right back. You're watching First Alert Weather Extra.
And welcome back into First Alert Weather Extra. An incredible view here from space of this developing tropical system. It's developing quickly. Tropical Storm Francine. You can see that circulation at one point today. It looked like the eye may already start to become exposed, and that might happen overnight. But it just, this shows that these systems, it doesn't take a week for these things to form. I mean, overnight they can go multiple categories. That's why we really need to watch it here. It might end up being a high-end Cat 2 as it approaches the coast of Louisiana. It still has quite a bit of water to cover here, and as long as it's out over that warm water of the Gulf of Mexico, that could allow this to intensify. But this is another area, though, where there was a lot of rain last week, and sometimes when you have a system where this water's been churned up, you get upwelling, and sometimes that can limit strengthening. So we'll see if that has any impact on this over the next couple days. But regardless, it's moving in our general direction. We're going to catch the wetter side of this, so it's going to bring us a lot of rain, some much needed rain. That's the good thing here. We have drought conditions, and this is the kind of system it takes to really have an impact on the drought. We'll see the peak rain chances for us rolling in late Wednesday night into the day on Thursday. Notice we have bumped it up. It's going to rain Thursday. There's going to be a good chance, and in the morning certainly plan for that chance of rain early in the day. And with these tropical systems, as they make landfall, they do contain a lot of wind energy, so that wind shear, we got to watch that. Sometimes you can end up with little warning of isolated tornadoes, so that's why that threat is there and why we have declared first alert weather days, because certainly an impactful system. At least we need to be weather alert these days as that system makes its way across our area. But let's go ahead to Tuesday here and look at the hourly forecast. We have one more day tomorrow. Nice weather out there. It's going to be a hot afternoon with those upper 80s. You can see plenty of sunshine in the mix. Some clouds, though, will start to move in. We'll, especially tomorrow night and into the day on Wednesday, could start to see some of that rain as early as Wednesday afternoon. Notice there Wednesday in the morning shows a dry start, but later in the day, here it comes. You see that wet weather lifting in from the southwest, and you can see these little bands that wrap in. These are the areas you have to watch for that risk of an isolated tornado as those swing through. This is showing into early Thursday morning, so we'll see Thursday morning some of that rain moving through, and then into the afternoon. Notice the actual center of the tropical system again making landfall in Louisiana. That stays back to the west of us. Some of the new data, those trended a little bit to the east here. I believe this is the American model, the GFS. So you can see it brings a possibility of some of that heavier rain back into west Alabama. So showers, some locally heavy rain, probably see 2 to 3 inches of rain in some of those locations. And then the system really slows down as it moves to the north. So we do have leftover showers in that forecast this weekend. Not a washout Saturday and Sunday. There will be some breaks, highs in the 80s, but we will see that 30% chance for showers. But hopefully by this weekend we have a little bit of, with rain in the forecast, good chance to color the weather right indoors. And we've had some great color the weather photos. Here's this picture submitted by Hollis, and I just want to remind all the kids out there, be sure to visit WBRC.com, and moms and dads, you can download those different color sheets for color the weather for the different seasons, and we're sharing those right here on First Alert Weather Extra. Just capture a photo once you color the weather, and you can share that on the First Alert Weather app or on the Color the Weather page. Again, go to WBRC.com, look for Weather in the Classroom, and you can find all the Color the Weather photos. But love all the colors in that picture. Tania?
I did too, Wes. Well, Boeing Starliner capsule returned from the International Space Station Friday evening, ending its nearly 3-month stay in space. But it flew back to Earth with an empty cabin, leaving behind 2 test pilots who must now remain on the station for another 5 or 6 months. Rob Kirkpatrick has more on this.
Starliner is now over the landing site.
Boeing Starliner capsule safely landed in White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico Friday overnight.
Touchdown. Starliner is back on Earth.
Starliner is the first U.S.-made capsule to parachute to the ground instead of the ocean.
It was a good landing. It's pretty awesome.
It was a great day today to return Starliner. It was great to have a successful undock, the orbit and landing of the vehicle. We're really excited to have Calypso back on the ground.
The vehicle is now about 2 meters.
Boeing Starliner returned without its 2 crew members, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams. NASA deemed the capsule unsafe after a series of setbacks, including helium leaks and stopped thrusters. Now Williams and Wilmore will spend another 5 or 6 months aboard the International Space Station on what was originally supposed to be a 10-day journey into space.
I'm sure ultimately that they both wanted what was best for the interest of NASA and for Boeing and that spacecraft.
Sunny, anything final?
Maybe they were a little bit disappointed that they didn't get to go back home sooner, but
Happy to be here.
this is something that they train for. They know that there's a chance they might stay in space longer.
NASA said it is not clear what the path forward for Starliner is and how soon it could return to flight, as Boeing has spent billions of dollars in contracts from NASA for rocket production.
Boeing is committed to continue their work with us.
Now Boeing will rely on its competitor, SpaceX, to bring the crew back safely when it heads into space next year. I'm Rob Kirkpatrick reporting.
Okay.
Right, time for some First Alert weather photos from the weather app. And this from Garland Brock sharing this lovely morning sunrise on Logan Martin Lake. Always some beautiful sunrises there.
I know, and another sunrise here, Wes. This is from Sandra Martin, and this is in Guntersville. How beautiful. Oh my goodness. And Heidi Odom, sunrise in Centerville. You can see all the different colors there.
Almost a little bit of purple in there.
I know,
Lovely
that's so
view.
pretty.
Terry Noble's Glacier National Park in Montana.
Now that's
big
nice.
country.
Wow.
Big sky country, right?
Hopefully they enjoyed their time out there. That's pretty cool. Thank
Yeah.
you for sending those in.
Yeah, I'd love to visit that place sometime. And
Me
see
too.
we get so many lovely photos there. But listen, we got to watch this thing. We've got the tropical storm, possible
Yes.
Hurricane Francine soon. We'll have updates on where it's going. You'll have the updated advisories tonight at 9. Of course, we'll have those at 10 as well.
Yep, and remember, First Alert Weather Day is in effect Wednesday through Friday. We'll give you more updates on the latest of what's happening with Tropical Storm Francine. Like Wes said, tonight, y'all have a wonderful evening. Hey, are you ready? Let's do it in 3, 2. Hey there, everyone. First Alert meteorologist Tania Michelle here with that super 7-day forecast. We have increasing rain chances from Tropical Storm Francine. Right now, it's a tropical storm in the Gulf, but we're keeping our eye on it as we move later into this week. We're going to see that best chance for rain on Thursday. We can also see an isolated tornado spawn up since we'll be on the eastern side of the system, but we're still watching the potential track of it. So check in for updates. Make sure you have multiple ways to receive weather information. Temperatures, though, in the 80s, a little bit cooler as we increase those rain chances. Mid 70s Thursday, low 80s Friday. Overnight temps in the 60s. We'll hold on to some lingering rain chances throughout the weekend and the start of next week, with temperatures rebounding into the mid 80s by next Monday. Again, if you're looking for forecast updates, you can check in with us on WBRC 6 News and download the First Alert weather app.